Good Friday, everybody. Jim Williams here, along with my buddy and partner in crime, Scott Rochelle. Scotty, yesterday we talked about the game between the Chiefs and the Chargers, and it pretty much played out the way we thought it was going to play out.
Well, we thought the Chiefs were going to win. We thought
Right.
it would be competitive.
Yep.
I actually leaned to the under to go a bit contrarian there, which got
Mhm.
there. But I feel like what we saw has been a microcosm of the division for the last, I don't even know, 8 years at this point.
Right.
The Chiefs find a way to win in the division. What else is
Mhm.
new? And the
Right.
Chargers are in spots to win games, have a decent shot to, probably should,
Mhm.
and they let it slip through their fingertips. And yesterday was really another example of that. You go up 10-0 immediately. The Chiefs are
Mhm.
having a hard time of really moving the ball. And they
Right.
score a touchdown. It's Mahomes. He's going to do his thing.
Right.
But you're up 10. You have a shot there to really put the game on ice. Now, the referees
Right.
might have helped because you had a couple interceptions that were overturned,
Right.
and that would have been big. But still, it seemed like the Chargers were the better team for the majority of the game. And yet they found themselves down 10 with like 3 minutes to go, when you kind of wonder how everything happened that way. The Chargers really had them on the ropes, and they just did what the Chargers do. They couldn't put the game away. The Chiefs continued to claw, and eventually the Chiefs won. But when it comes down to analyzing the game, the Chiefs won a division game at home, and the
Mhm.
Chargers basically blew a game they should have won. So it sounds like same story, different year.
I was going to say, some things never change. It was a typical Andy Reid, don't sleep on me. We'll find a way to get back.
Did you have
And
any other takeaways from that game? Because that was really the
well,
main storyline for
yeah,
me.
the thing to me was, hopefully everything's fine with Justin Herbert. I think he's going to be fine. And he got banged up toward the end of the game, but he looks like he's going to be back. I hope that the Chargers can learn from it, because if they don't, it's going to be another Kansas City Chiefs victory in that division. Because to me, that's the Chargers are probably the best team in the division other than Kansas City.
Yeah, Chargers, you can argue, are even the more talented team on paper than
Yeah,
Kansas City. But
right.
it didn't matter in the end because the Chargers coaching or play calling or whatever you want to call it let them down. The pick six
Right.
didn't help, obviously, because that's a
Sure.
14-point swing in the fourth quarter. But it seemed like the Chargers, of course, have the talent, and that was without Keenan Allen. So they were
Right.
shorthanded, and they still looked really, really good that entire game.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't know what the thought process is behind Austin Eckler
Right.
and what they're using in that offense, or what his purpose is. He basically had a career year last year. He was
Right.
incredible, and they've just barely given him the ball. I mean, I figured with Keenan being out, you'd use him
Mm-hmm.
more as a receiver. You might throw
Right.
him out wide. You might try to get him into
Right.
some one-on-one spots against linebackers.
Sure.
He was just a total non-factor.
Right.
And Mike Williams might be a better football player, maybe, but it's close. The point
Mm-hmm.
is, Eckler is one of your best two weapons since Keenan was out, and you barely used them.
Right.
I just don't really understand what the point is when you basically limit the explosiveness or the actual playmaking of one of your best players by not trying to force feed him the ball, at least at some point in the game. It
Right.
seemed like Eckler was really an afterthought, and I really didn't understand that thought process.
Sometimes I think, and I think that this is the case with the Chargers, their coaching staff tends to overcoach.
Yeah.
And, they overthink and they do many things. One of the things that I think has been an Andy Reid staple going all the way back to Philadelphia is that he doesn't overcoach. He basically pares things down and says, all right, this is what we're going to do, sticks to the game plan. And if they have to deviate, they do. But for the most part, the plan is the plan. And it has served him well going all the way back to Philadelphia. I do think the new coaches, and some of them, like the Chargers, they have all that talent. The talent's not going to do you any good if you don't know how to coach them. And to your point, Eckler and other players, I mean, there was some bizarre time management issues with them,
There always
to
is.
me.
And
And
even though they covered and they
yeah,
scored a touchdown at the
yeah,
end, why did they go for it on fourth and goal down 2 possessions?
I, I don't know.
That doesn't make any sense. I know it
Right,
worked out because Palmer caught the touchdown, but you're
right,
down 10. It's fourth and goal at the 7. You
right,
need 2 scores. Like, you have to kick there.
Right.
I don't understand the thought process really with anything Staley did yesterday.
Right.
And I feel like that kind of sums up what I thought about him previously.
Right.
He's not a great coach. And it was even more confusing because I called him out for it in week
Hmm.
one. I mentioned it like a minute or two ago on Morning Wood,
Yeah.
but Staley was known as being the hyper aggressive coach.
Right.
That was his shtick. He would go
Hmm.
for it on fourth down all the time, didn't matter where it was on the field. And
Right.
that was kind of his identity. And yet, in the first half, the Chargers have 4th and 2 at
Right.
Kansas City's 47-yard line, and you
Right.
punt. So I'm just confused. If the whole basis of your decision making was the numbers, and you
Right.
were trying to be an analytics guy,
Right.
did the numbers change? Or are you just afraid of social media backlash? Because if you're going to stay true to yourself
Right.
and really just believe in the process that you're doing, then
Right.
you have to go for it on 4th and 2 at the 47 every time. And
Right.
the fact that he punted means that he's afraid, or the whole potential organization's afraid of social media backlash. So he became extremely conservative, but then he went for it on 4th and goal at the 7. So I don't even know the identity of
Right.
Staley anymore. I'm lost.
Well, welcome to the AFC West. The situation with the coaches in Denver. We've got, Josh McDaniels, who hasn't really put his stamp on the Raiders yet. I mean, it's his first year there, but um, you know, they're going to all get out coached by Andy Reid. And
Truth is, I'm not even sure if Reed had a great night. I still
yeah,
can't
yeah,
believe he kicked
yeah,
the field goal on 4th and goal at the 1. You have Mahomes, who's one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time,
right.
and you kick a field goal on 4th and goal at the 1. I thought
No,
that was mind-numbingly
right,
ridiculous. It worked out because they won the game,
right,
and Herbert threw a pick six on the next drive. But, I mean, if we're talking about bad coaching or coaching decisions, Staley's going to get all the flack because they lost the game.
right.
I can't believe Andy Reid kicked the field goal on 4th and goal at the 1-yard line with Mahomes. I think that is really just offensively bad. Do you
Well,
understand that move? Because I don't.
no, I understand that. Look, would I've done it? No. All right, but nobody called and asked me.
You take the
Um,
lead. I get it, but
yeah,
it's Mahomes. You're
right,
forcing the opponent to, worst
right.
case, go 99 yards. Like, you
The
kind of
the
have to go for it. At least call a
right.
QB sneak. Do something.
That's the one thing that Mahomes doesn't do well is a quarterback sneak.
Because
Now,
he
I
got
don't
injured.
understand well.
He got injured in that Thursday
Yeah,
night game against Denver a year or two
right,
ago, and they
right,
haven't really done it since. But we've seen Blake Bell, one of the tight ends, being used in a QB sneak package. That's what I
right.
would do. I don't even know
Because
why you need a quarterback back there. Bring in an offensive lineman to play
right,
fullback.
right.
Bring in a tight end to play quarterback. You practice it 3 times a week, and you run a super duper jumbo goal line package, and you gain a
Right.
yard. That's
You
what I
could
would do.
you could how about Travis Kelsey? I
Yeah.
mean, that's what I would do.
I
I would
mentioned Bell because Bell, I believe,
yeah,
had high school experience at quarterback, and he
yeah.
has done QB
Hmm.
sneaks before. That's what
Sure.
I would do. I mean, you have some tight end who's basically 100 pounds heavier than Mahomes.
Right.
All you have to do is take a snap and lean forward,
Right.
bring in some offensive and defensive linemen and some eye set, and tell
Hmm.
them to just ram your own quarterback into the end zone. That's it.
Well, what was it the other day? I think it was in the Steelers game against the Bengals. That the Steelers ran using a linebacker
Yeah.
they turned around, handed the ball to the linebacker, and the linebacker scored. We need 1 yard. You're big. We'll make it. Just plow through it. So that is the jumbo package. So I don't know. I mean, Kansas City came away with a win. The Chargers didn't, and thus begins the year. I did get a chance to watch. I know you were busy last evening. I was very pleased with the broadcast from Amazon. I thought they did a good pregame show. The game was, you're not going to go wrong with Alan Hervey doing the game, and the postgame stuff was good. So all in all, I would give them, certainly a B plus because you got to give them some room to get better. But all in all, I thought it was a good telecast.
Yeah.
Everybody watch it.
Telecast I thought was overall fine if you could find
Hmm.
it.
Right.
That's a whole separate story. I mean, the game was expected to be good, and it was. You
Hmm.
had 2
Right.
good quarterbacks. I thought the Chiefs, even though they won the game, the defense was pretty
Hmm.
solid, but I didn't think the Chiefs played that well. I
Right.
thought they were fine, and the Chargers just tripped over themselves a couple of times.
Right.
So Chiefs won at home. I expected it. Unfortunately, it was a bit of a bad beat there with the Chiefs
Mm-hmm.
because the Chargers, as I said before, went for it, down 2 possessions, 4th and goal at the 7.
Mm-hmm.
If they kick a field goal, you cover, and
Right.
they scored a touchdown instead. So the Chiefs ended up only winning by
Mm-hmm.
3 and did not cover. It's a brutal beat if you have the
Right.
Chiefs there, because I still can't believe the Chargers. They even converted a 4th and 1 to even get into the red zone in the first place.
Right.
I can't believe they went for it in that spot. It doesn't make any sense at all. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the Chiefs, if you had them on the minus the 4, you
Mm-hmm.
got burned at the end of the game.
Well, let's downshift here for a second. Now, I know that you guys are going to be doing a college football show, in about an hour. So
Yep.
we won't burn much, but there are a few games that I picked off the list, if you don't mind. If you are going to talk about them, I can always switch up, so we can go with that. But one intriguing one to me was a game that over the years I've done a couple of times, and that's Cincinnati at Miami of Ohio. Now, these two teams have played each other since 1888. They have played 125 times.
It's a big
This
spread in that
The
game.
series is tied 59, 59, and 7. So, what are your thoughts on Miami has always given Cincinnati grief? Will they, and you just mentioned it, the line being big. Is this a game you're dealing with, or is this a game you can talk about?
I'm personally not, but I can still talk about it in general.
Okay.
At first glance, I'm kind of with you, or at least I'm under the same. I think I know which way you're leaning if you had to pick a side. I'm going
Right.
to take the points. I just think it's too big of a spread. And Cincinnati beat Kennesaw State last week. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you. But Cincinnati's on the road, and it's one of Miami's biggest games of the season. It's Miami's probably their biggest out of conference game. I know they played against Kentucky. I think if
Right.
you ask the student fan base who they'd rather beat, Kentucky or Cincinnati, they'd pick Cincinnati like 10
Oh,
times out of 10.
I was going to say 11 times out of 10.
So Miami's a team that I like. I think that they're potentially going to win the MAC, but
Mhm.
they played Robert Morris. They also didn't really play anybody in week 2. I think 22 is just a lot of points, and Miami's an experienced team. They're a solid
Mhm.
team. Cincinnati was pretty good in the second half against Arkansas. I think Cincinnati's the better team. But laying 22 on the road in a rivalry game, and you just said that they're tied. They've
Mhm.
played for 140 years, and they're tied in the
Mhm.
head-to-head.
Right.
I think 22 is too many points. Do I think Miami's going to win?
Yeah.
No. I think Cincinnati probably wins. Do I think they win by more than 3 touchdowns? No. I think that's a little bit crazy. I think Miami probably keeps it close. Give me Cincinnati by 10 to 17. But 22? That's a lot of points for a road team in a rivalry game.
Yeah, that's where I'm on that, is that, you know, this is the game that every year um, Miami circles and says, we have a chance to beat, this team. And, it's, you know, both of them are small schools. I mean, they're not big schools, but, you know, Miami of Ohio wanting to take home and, sit there and going, all right, we're playing a team that last year was in the college football playoffs, and we have a chance to beat them. I mean, if that isn't, really wanting to do it, I don't know what is. I mean, that's, to me, that's 100% wanting to, basically put through your best effort. Now, I think Miami of Ohio, 22 versus Cincinnati's 22 is not that different. But as we all know, it's not that. It's the depth. And I don't think they have the depth. I think it'll be a close game. It always is. And I'm like you. I would take the points in the, New York second
By the
on
way, I
that
might have
one.
misspoke. I'm not sure if it's actually a home game for Miami or if it's going to be a neutral.
Well, I'll look at, I think it's, I'll look at that. I don't think they don't play in neutral sites. So somebody's got to be home.
I was going to say ESPN has an asterisk, so I'm assuming that means a neutral, but it doesn't tell me the stadium.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. They're playing in Cincinnati at Bengals Stadium.
Okay.
Okay.
So I guess that's why it's 22, because it's not exactly
Yeah.
a home game. But
It's 41 miles from Miami's campus, just for those of you who want to take the trip down.
I just still think it's too many points. I mean, you're looking at a total of 50.5, so you're expecting a
Right.
low-scoring game anyway. Miami's going to try to drain the clock. Cincinnati doesn't exactly go quickly either.
Right.
So the home field stuff was apparently misleading because they're playing closer to Cincinnati, actually.
We're
But I
playing
still
in
think,
Cincinnati,
yeah,
but yeah,
not their home stadium. I just
not
think
the
it's too many
stadium.
points. I'm going to lean to Miami there.
What about now? Again, if you're going to talk about it, then let me know. What about California Notre Dame?
Notre Dame is not good at all, but California I know is not good and does not have the athletes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with Notre Dame in that one.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a pretty decent buy low spot on Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
They really no showed a game against Marshall. They were competitive against Ohio State, so I guess
Right.
there's that. But they're at home. California is a team that is 2-0, but you look at who they've played. They beat UNLV by 6.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations, I guess. I mean, UNLV is not a good team, but you beat them by
Right.
6. And you beat an FCS school in UC Davis in week 1.
Right.
I don't think Notre Dame's a good team, but athletically speaking, they should be more talented at basically every position.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be without their starting quarterback because Buckner's out. Was he that good? No. So I think you could argue that it was time for him to get benched anyway. I'm going to go with Notre Dame. Do I feel great about it? No. I'd lean to the under in the game. I don't like either offense. But based on the overall talent with the recruiting and with the overall just depth, Notre Dame's light years ahead of California. I think
Right.
it's a pretty good buy low spot. Is California going to score 10 points in this game? I don't know, to be honest. I would not surprise me if they didn't reach 10 points. Would you be
Mm-hmm.
surprised? They scored 20
No.
against UNLV at home. Like, that is
Mm-hmm.
not a good offensive showing.
No. And look, Cal's not even in the top tier in their own conference. So I definitely don't think that that it's going to be a. I mean, there's doom and gloom all over the place in South Bend, but it's not Freeman's fault to a great extent. Being honest, when Brian Kelly left, he didn't leave the house with much left in it. So it was one of those situations where Freeman, has to recruit and hopefully put together a team for down the road. Now,
He also has to win a damn game. He's 0-3. Like, I'm sure
right.
the players, even though you could argue, well, the season's over, we're not going to make the playoff. I'm sure Notre Dame's players and staff knew going in it was a rebuilding year anyway.
Right.
You still want to make a bowl game. You still want to represent the university in a proud manner, as cheesy as that sounds.
Right.
You also want to give your coach the game ball for winning his first ever game. I think there's motivation for Notre Dame. I think they're going to win the game comfortably. It won't be pretty, but if you wanted a score prediction, 27-10.
Yeah. It'll be ugly, but it'll be a win. Don wants to know about OU Nebraska. Nebraska and Oklahoma under 67. That's a lot of points.
It's a lot of points, but they just gave up 45 to Georgia Southern. So
Right.
I don't know if that is a lot of points or not.
Well, I guess you're right there. I was thinking for a moment that I'm not. I don't even know who's coaching Nebraska.
Mickey. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
It doesn't matter.
He's the first African American coach in
at Nebraska
of Nebraska athletics, and that's athletics. That's not just the football team. He's the first ever black coach, which is
it's a pretty telling statistic. There you go.
And it's a pretty sad statistic, but at least it's over.
100%.
But I feel like people like Nebraska in this matchup solely because it's the classic, we fired the coach, it's time to get up for the competition,
right?
We're ready to go. I'm not taking Nebraska.
No.
Like, I'm just not doing it. Oklahoma didn't look great against Kent State, which was expected because that was a clear look-ahead spot to Nebraska, especially a road game. I just think Oklahoma offensively is too talented. And Gabriel's a quarterback that I think is a little bit overrated, but he's still talented. Nebraska gave up 400-plus passing yards to Van Treese, who basically got sent out of Buffalo.
Right.
I don't think Nebraska's going to get many stops.
No.
So I'm going to go with Oklahoma. If you want to go with the new coach angle, you can. I'm not sure their new coach can actually coach. That's a whole separate story.
Right.
But I'll take Oklahoma. Nebraska is just an absolute dumpster fire. I'm
Mm-hmm.
staying away. And even though Scott Frost is the master of choking away close games,
Mm-hmm.
is it only his fault that the team gave up 630-something yards of offense to
No.
Georgia
No.
Southern? No. The defense is broken. You
Mm-hmm.
gave up 30. You gave up 30-plus points to Northwestern. That's
Mm-hmm.
not good. I'm going to go with Oklahoma, maybe a team total. I just don't see many stops for Nebraska's defense in this game.
No. Let's see. Air Force Wyoming over 46 points tonight. 46 and a half. I'm sorry. Andrew's wondering, that's a lot of, well, maybe not. Air Force still runs that triple option stuff.
Yeah. And Wyoming can't stop the run.
And right. So maybe 46 and a half. Maybe you'll get over that. What do you think?
It's tricky because Air Force might score a bunch of touchdowns. The issue is they might take 9 minutes off the clock on each drive.
Right. Exactly.
I'm looking at Wyoming team total under because I'm
Right.
not sure how many possessions they're going to get. And that Wyoming team's really, really bad. Like I've watched, they're really, really bad. But I watched them in week 1 against Illinois.
Right.
They give up 40-plus points to Illinois, and they gave up like basically 200-plus rushing yards to the starting running back. They might have allowed 300 total in that game. I want to pull up the exact rushing yards for Wyoming. But Air Force, number 1 rushing team in the country right now. I'm aware they haven't really played anybody, but still, the point is they still are elite at running that triple option. I don't think Wyoming gets many stops in this game.
No.
And they also can't score. But to go through their 3 games, they gave up 38 points to Illinois. They gave up 40 to Tulsa, I believe, and Tulsa's not a good offensive team.
No.
But to go through the numbers there, Illinois against Wyoming had 258 rushing yards, 6.3 yards per carry, and 3 rushing touchdowns. So Wyoming couldn't stop the run to save their lives in the first game of the season. Then moving on to the second game against Tulsa, they gave up 37 points. They ended up winning that game in overtime. But to go through those numbers, Tulsa really did not do much on the ground. They threw for 460 yards, which is just crazy. But the point is Wyoming's defense isn't good. Air Force's defense is, I'm going with Air Force. I think they'll win this game comfortably. Will it be low scoring? Probably, because I'm not sure how much Wyoming's going to score. But if you want an actual prediction for a score, 30 to 10, 30 to 13. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm looking at.
Okay, let's fly through some of these questions real quick. Ryan likes Louisville tonight. Do we like? It's a question. Do we like Louisville tonight? I think FSU will win the game. I don't know what the.
It's 2.5.
Is it 2.5? Okay.
Yeah, it's 2.5. So if Florida State's winning, they're basically going to cover.
Yeah. Andrew can't wait for the fight tomorrow, which we've already talked about that being a something of definite interest.
If you wanted my pick for the fight,
go ahead.
I'm rooting for Triple G, but I'm going Canelo by decision.
Okay. Would you take Vanderbilt on the money line over Northern Illinois? Man.
I watched Vandy get their brains beaten in by Wake Forest last week, but Hartman came back and they looked good.
Right.
I've seen Northern Illinois play. I don't think they're very good. Right. And I know they won the conference last year, but I've watched them struggle against Eastern Illinois. They didn't look great against Tulsa last week. I don't think that Northern Illinois is actually a good team, but it's not totally their fault because they ended up losing Rudolph, who was their best wide receiver before the season started. It was a high-scoring game. They ended up losing 38-35. Defensively, they're not great. I'm kind of leaning to the over. I think I'm going to take Nebraska there if I had to pick a side.
Right.
I've just seen Northern Illinois play, and their defense is not good at all.
You mean Vanderbilt?
What'd I say?
You said Nebraska.
Sorry, not Nebraska. Sorry. I will not take Nebraska under any circumstances. I'll take Vandy on that spot. I think that team's actually not terrible. And Wake Forest is a good team with Hardman that could win 8 or 9 games. Like I think just because they got blown out isn't exactly an embarrassing loss.
Right.
Northern Illinois once again barely beat Eastern Illinois.
Right.
Like I don't think that's a good football team. I don't mind Vandy. I don't look at the over. I could see a lot of points being scored in that game.
When you start getting to directional schools, things get a little crazy. Let's see. James is fading UL Monroe, UMass, New Mexico State, Nevada, and Wyoming, but he worries about Nevada and worries about Wyoming.
Nevada's tricky because they're a really bad team, but they're playing Iowa and they're getting 20 plus points. Iowa scored 1 touchdown in 120 minutes. They scored 1.
I've got the stat on that. Of the 130 some odd teams in college, in major college football, they're ranked their offense is ranked 127th. So
Is that I'm sorry, is that last or what?
no, that's 4 or 5
That's
from
what I
the last.
thought you said.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could be any worse. Those 3 other teams need to fire their offensive coordinator because I
Right.
don't know how
Right.
you can be worse than Iowa's offense right now. They've scored a total of they lost 10-7 last week, right, to Iowa State?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they've scored a total of 2 times offensively, including field goals. And one of their scoring drives, they had negative yards. They had a field goal against South Dakota State where they, I believe, had negative 3 yards on the drive.
Well, the game last week when they scored that touchdown against Iowa State, they it was a short field.
That was a short field too. So they have not gotten the ball from touchback or anything like that and scored any
No.
points.
No.
And you're looking at what the coach is doing for Iowa. I called them out for it during the offseason, during the
Mm-hmm.
actual conference preview. I don't know how your offense can be that bad for this long. You got
Mm-hmm.
exposed by Michigan in the conference title game,
Right.
and you brought Petrus back as your
Mm-hmm.
starting quarterback. I said before the offensive numbers. You mentioned him. Petrus's
Mm-hmm.
QBR is like 5.
Right.
He's been arguably the worst quarterback out of any Power 5 school this entire season, besides
Right.
maybe King from A&M, who's now no longer the starter. And
Right.
yet the entire press conferences this past week, and the coach is saying Petrus is our guy, and they ask him why. He's been awful, and his response is because I'm the coach and I
you're
said
not.
so.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You're a moron.
Right.
Like I've mentioned that Iowa should not be complacent with relying on punting teams to death under
Right.
their current coach. He's stuck in 1950. It's an
Right.
episode of The Twilight Zone, and he's the main character. It's
He's the
not good.
guy.
But
Yeah.
the fact that you come out publicly when all of the data says this guy stinks,
Right.
and your response is because I said so, you should be fired on the spot for principle.
Right. Right.
Am I overreacting or no? Because I
No,
don't know how you say that publicly.
I remember. I mean, when I was doing Big Ten, Hayden Fry was coach at Iowa, and Hayden had a great sense of humor. But even Hayden wouldn't say, because I said so.
That's what he said. He said, "I'm the
No.
coach. Like,
Yeah.
deal with it." It's
No,
like,
I'm not saying he didn't
no, I
say it.
get
I'm
it. I'm
saying,
just
yeah.
like, why are you lost the rivalry game? You
Yeah.
didn't score a touchdown against an FCS team.
Right.
Like, what are you holding on to right now? Why are you so attached to Petrus? Padilla might be bad, but like you got to try to shake some things up every now and then.
It would be nice. It would be nice. All right, I'm gonna throw one out there. Only because it's a game that do you ever have a game, and this is not a game I would bet on, it's a game that I just want to watch because I want someone to lose.
Okay.
So this is one of those I hate you games. This is I'm hoping Miami beats Texas A&M by 100 points. I do not
Are you
like Jimbo.
anti-Jimbo or are you anti?
Oh, I'm huge anti Jimbo.
Oh,
I have,
that makes sense because
I
you went
have
to Florida.
family.
You want a title with Florida State. Okay, that makes sense.
I have a family who went to Texas A&M, so I love the university. Okay, Jimbo absolutely decimated Florida State.
Yeah,
and what he did to them, I think, was criminal, and that he got rewarded for it is even more criminal. He's getting all of these spectacular recruiting classes, and he's not doing a damn thing with them.
they're also spending like $3 billion or whatever on that new practice facility that they've been working on.
Right. So Jimbo never has enough, and now he's got serious problems because his arch rival in Texas is coming into the conference. He still has to play Alabama. And so I would love, and again, this is just me being me, I would love Mario Cristobal and Miami to roll them big time. So don't bet on me. Just this is me being, anti Jimbo, because he's such a whiner. I can't take it. There you go.
I root for Florida State, so Jimbo won a title.
Right.
Do I think he's a good football coach? I think he's
Hmm.
fine. I don't think he's amazing by any means. People try to put him in like some top 5 ranking system, and I don't
No
think he's
way.
that good. I think he benefited from having one of the most underratedly talented rosters on paper when he
Hmm.
won the title. Because
Hmm.
Jameis Winston, whether you like him or not, I know he turned into a meme. He
Hmm.
was easily one of the best quarterbacks in all college football. That's why he was the top 2 pick in the draft. He was great. They had
Hmm.
Dalvin Cook there, who turned out to be a superstar running
Sure.
back. They had Kelvin Benjamin, who before the weight issues was extremely talented.
Hmm.
The defense was good. That team on paper was loaded. I
Hmm.
thought that Florida State, and they almost lost to Auburn anyway, and they were
Sure.
significantly better than Auburn
Sure.
in that entire game, or based on
Hmm.
paper. So Jimbo, who won a title, did I think he was a great coach? Not really. I thought he was fine,
Hmm.
but I understand your point.
Let
He's
me
not the
say
only
that.
person
Yeah.
to jump ship, though.
Right.
I mean, that's a common practice.
Right. No, I understand. I'm just saying. I have a great respect for Florida State, all the way back to Coach Bowden. I love Florida State. I've been there. I probably directed more games at Florida State than any other. Well, maybe University of Michigan.
But Florida State
Um,
was an institution, not
right.
anymore, but they used to be.
Right. And so I love the people at Florida State. Um, I just didn't like Jimbo when he was there, because everything was a problem. Jimbo couldn't. There's not a thing that he couldn't find to complain about. And now he got his, big time contract, and he's going to get everything he wants, but he's still not happy,
Yep.
and he's also still not winning. So, for what it's worth, there you go. We're going to get to the parlays, because I know that's got pro stuff in it, and we'll talk about that. But first, let's talk about the people who sponsor the show, our good friends at Caesar Sportsbook. They have a great deal. First time users get up to $1,250 free bet insurance. Download the app today, and you can use it all weekend long and have a lot of fun with your free bet insurance. So, once again, um, our sponsor, Caesar Sportsbook, has a great deal. First time users get up to $1,250 of free bet insurance. Download that app today. Remember to check the age limits in every state, because some are 18, some are 21, and always bet responsibly. All right. Okay. So, Scott, one last thing. Let me throw this one in here real quick. And that is, don't forget Chris King's best premium bets every day. He'll be back on Monday. Check the link in the show box below. It's right below the one having to do with Caesars, and you can get all of his free picks. Check it all out in our show box below. Meanwhile, back to Mr. Rochelle, and you, my friend, can take us from wherever you want to go from this point.
Cool. So, first of all, for clarification, the 4 pick will be NFL plays. The
Okay.
first slide, the 2 picks will be baseball.
Okay.
So, starting off with the 2 for the money plays,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be the Red Sox money line at minus 200 and the run line at even money against the Royals. I know the Red Sox aren't exactly a good team. They're better than the Royals, but you're looking at the pitching matchup. Waka's been incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not exactly sure what happened there. Like Waka was kind of bouncing around, kind of a journeyman, but he's been incredible for the Red Sox this season. And you have Heasley pitching for the Royals. He has not been good at all. But I like the Red Sox at home. They still got Devers, still got Bogart, still got Martinez. They have weapons in that lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Heasley struggles in this matchup. So give me the Red Sox there. Then I'm going to go with the over 8.5 with the Padres and the Diamondbacks. You have Snell against Bumgarner. Both pitchers are not exactly in good form right now.
Right.
Bumgarner's been a mess for the last 3 years or so. And
Mm-hmm.
Snell was awful to start the year. Then he was extremely solid in the middle portion of the season, right on the All-Star break. And then he
Right.
kind of reverted back to being bad, at least based on the last couple outings. I like the over at 8.5. I just think that either pitcher is going to struggle, maybe both. I'll take the over there. Then moving on to the second 2 pick, I have the Astros minus 360 and the money and the run line at minus 155 against Oakland. It's a lot of juice. Verlander's back. That's good enough for me. Houston just does Houston things. They win every game at home.
Mm-hmm.
It's really never in doubt. Oakland's a terrible baseball team. I'll take the Astros to get the job done there. And I'm going to go with Seattle minus 155 and plus 105 on the run line against the Angels. I think Robbie Ray is a good pitcher, and he won the Cy Young last year. I know that he had a couple of growing pains early on with his time in Seattle. Looking at the last couple of months, he's been solid, and it's really just a good price because the Angels are what we like to call a bad baseball team. Lorenzen's pitching. He has not been particularly good this year. The Angels are 31-40 at home, and the Mariners are 41-30 on the road. So home field and not exactly that important based on how these teams have played this season. I just think it's a good price because Seattle's still competing for something. The Angels officially clinched a losing record in their last game. Congratulations. Way to go, guys. Way to make the most of Trout and Ohtani's prime.
Right.
Rye asking if Verlander's going to be on a pitch count. Probably. But Houston does have the number one bullpen ERA in the league. So I'm okay with a pitch count there. Oakland can't pitch. They can't hit. I'm not exactly worried by them. But you have any thoughts on that Mariners game? Because I feel like even though the Angels still have Ohtani and Trout, they never win. Shouldn't Seattle be favored by more with Ray on the mound?
I would think. And I mean, Seattle's playing pretty good baseball.
Yeah.
And they are in the hunt with the Rays and the Jays for that, for the playoff space. And yeah, I would agree with you 100%.
But that's kind of how I look at it. So that's the two picks there. That's what they're going to pay out. And now, time to move on to the NFL Sunday, or I believe every pick was from Sunday, parlay. And last week, we ended up losing. We went 3-1, which is an extra heartbreak because we won 75% of our plays. We still lost the 4 pick. But moving on to the 4 for the show, starting off with the Bengals. I actually made a YouTube video on this play this past a couple hours ago. I got the Bengals -7 and -115. The Cowboys are atrocious. I mean, there's really nothing to like about this team. Parsons, very good player. I think that Diggs is a pretty good corner. He gets burned too much, but he's very opportunistic. And I think DeMarcus Lawrence is overrated. I think he's a pretty good defensive lineman whose stats are never as good as you expect them to be. But with Dak being out, they can't protect anybody because the offensive line is injured to hell and back. They have Cooper Rush now. I don't like their team at all. The Bengals outplayed Pittsburgh in week 1. They lost because they committed 5 turnovers, including a pick 6. I think the Bengals smacked them in this game. I'll take the Bengals to bounce back and to win this game comfortably. Then I'll take the under 44.5 between the Dolphins and the Ravens. I don't like either offense. The Ravens in week 1, despite winning, had 13 first downs against the Jets in the entire game. 13 first downs. They couldn't run the ball. The receiving core didn't do much either. They had a couple of breaks in coverage. Duvernay had a couple touchdowns, and Bateman caught 1 bomb. But the Ravens want to control the clock, and the Dolphins, despite the touchdown pass to Waddle, scored 20 points. 2 as a game manager. They're not going to score quickly. I see a low-scoring, grinded-out game. I think 44.5 is way too high for a total. I'm going to take the under there. Then moving on to another rain game involving the 49ers. I'm going to take the alternative spread here. I'm going to take the plus 10.5. I don't know how Trey Lance is laying 8.5 here from what I saw in week 1. I don't think he's a good quarterback. I've said it time and time again. It's a rivalry game that's usually close, but there's bad weather. Geno, I think, is a better quarterback than Trey Lance right now, which tells you how bad Trey Lance is. But Seattle's defense was stingy against Denver, and I don't like San Francisco's offense with their quarterback, so I'll take the points there. I'm assuming Kittle's not going to play as well, so they should be a little bit shorthanded. And the last play, just to throw it in there, I got Rams money line at -475 against the Falcons. They played Thursday night. They got their asses kicked. They had an extra couple days to prepare for Sunday. They're the much better team than Atlanta. I think they bounce back nicely, and that 4 pick pays out at plus 636.
One quick question. I was just looking through the questions. I do want to get back to one of the games here in just a second. Harvard Merrimack. I would definitely take Harvard. They've got a very good offense, and the question is, can Merrimack hold Harvard to less than 4 scores? And I don't think they can. So for those, Rise on it, a couple other guys are on it. Harvard Merrimack. That's a game tonight. So yeah, I think Harvard's got a good chance for that. Meanwhile, the game between the Dolphins and the Ravens intrigues me. because you've got two quarterbacks who are, basically and two teams who didn't make the playoffs last year. But this year, everybody's all over these two teams. Yet last week, as you said, in the opener, neither of them looked good.
They both won, but they
Yeah.
played against teams that are not exactly good. I've roasted New England for the entire
Mm-hmm.
offseason, and
Right.
I don't need to say how bad I think the Jets are.
Right.
So, like, they did the bare minimum and
Mm-hmm.
won. But the fact, I can understand Miami maybe not being able to move the ball because New England's
Right.
defense is still good on paper.
Sure.
The Ravens couldn't move the ball against the Jets. Like, do we have serious
Mm-hmm.
problems with this offense? Because it feels that way, doesn't it?
Uh, yeah, and they went out and they got themselves, the Swiss Army knife, the speedster from the Kansas City Chiefs, and you're sitting there going, well, Tua ought to be able to find him somewhere on the field.
He's a check down guy every time you watch him play. Like, nothing changes.
No, I mean, it's like he looks at the offense, and if his number one, play isn't there, he either picks the ball up and runs, or as you say, checks down and throws it to a back.
Yeah,
So
basically
I,
it.
I don't know what the hell they're doing, and I don't see where either of these teams are that good. Defense for both of them are good, and that's why I agree with you on the under. But the offense, I'm just going to sit back and wait because I don't think either of these teams are offensively going to beat anybody.
And I've mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again. If you're going to try to take a case for an over-under, you
Mm-hmm.
have to visualize big plays.
Sure.
Those are usually what determines a total. Are you going to have a random 70-yard touchdown in a 1-minute scoring drive? Or is every drive going to take time off the clock? I don't see many big plays between these teams. And yes, I know Tyreek Hill's on the team. They still have Marlon Humphrey, who's a very good corner, who I think is
Mm-hmm.
going to be matched up. But Tua, as we said before, he's known for being a good ball security quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And if you try to push the envelope with him, it's not going to go well. So, do I think both teams will generate many big plays? No, because Baltimore wants to run the ball. It didn't work last week, but they want to run the ball.
Right.
And the Dolphins want to try to potentially air it out, but based on Tua and his lack of elite arm strength,
Mm-hmm.
he does check the ball down a lot. So
Right.
I think this total's too high. I don't think that there is a guarantee that both teams reach 20 individually. I don't think potentially either team reaches 20. I think one
Mm-hmm.
team will. If you wanted a score prediction, 2017.
If there's a parlay out there, I'm not parlay. If there's a player prop out there, this looks to me like a great day for Justin Tucker.
It should be.
I could see Justin Tucker ending up with 3 or 4 field goals in this game.
Yeah, I could see a lot of field goals here, and red zone defense is still a
Mm-hmm.
pretty good calling card for both teams.
Right.
If the Ravens or Dolphins go on a long 6-minute drive
Mm-hmm.
and they settle for a 26-yard field goal,
Right.
you're going to be pissed if you have the over. I'll tell you that much.
Right.
But
Well, you're talking about neither team, the defenses being good red zone defenses. Neither of the offenses are good red zone offenses.
yeah, so I could just see a lot of long potential
Playing
drives that
between,
go nowhere.
playing between the 20s.
And we saw this on Thursday night last year. Now, I know Tyreek Hill's there, but if you
Yeah.
remember the Thursday night game, nobody could score a damn touchdown for 2.5 quarters.
Yeah.
Like, I see a similar story here.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Tyreek can't, he can't score a touchdown or anything if he doesn't have the ball.
Yeah.
And they just, how do you figure out, how do you have an offensive coordinator who can't figure out how to use him? Still baffles me.
I'm also not sure if Hill's a good fit for this offense because if his sole purpose is to take the top off, but the quarterback is never a threat to actually take the top off,
Right.
then is he a decoy? Like, what exactly is the point?
I don't know. I'm not, I am not ashamed to say I was never a Tua guy. I'm still not a Tua guy.
I
And
wasn't a fan of him in college,
yeah,
but that was solely because of injuries. It wasn't because of the arm strength or anything like that. I just thought that he was a little too risky because of how many body parts he ended up injuring.
right.
The arm strength turned out to be a separate can of worms because he really cannot throw the ball with much oomph on it and you kind of need to in the sport.
Well, a lot of times people forget, Scott, that the field itself is 52 yards wide.
Yeah.
Okay. So even throwing what looks like a dink pass, right? You may have to throw that ball 40 yards to get 10 or to get 6 because you're throwing it across the field.
Yeah.
So, there's a deception factor when you're sitting there going, well, he can't throw it, he can't throw it long. We know that. But can he even make the what we might call, the medium passes? And even that's a problem with Tua.
Yeah. I
So,
think Tua is a below average quarterback who got blessed by being put into a very solid situation because the
yeah.
defense is so good.
hmm
If you want my prediction in 3-4 years for Tua, I think he's a backup quarterback.
He's a game manager, which is fine if you have the offense around you to do it. They don't.
I just think that eventually he's going to run into the same issue that Alex Smith ran into in San Francisco,
Right.
or these other, or even Alex Smith again in Kansas City.
Right.
When you're a game manager and you can't exactly win your team games,
hmm
eventually teams will take the flashy youngster who
Right.
could give you a different dimension. I think this is who Tua is.
Where
And
they
to
go.
be honest,
Yeah.
I don't think he's great. I think he's okay. I think he's below average. But he might win you 10 or 11 games, but you need a really good defense in order for him to do it. And at that
Yeah.
point, you might want to push the envelope and try to get yourself a superstar quarterback.
Yeah, and even if you go look at Tennessee went and got a Tannehill, and they got him because he's a game manager, but he also could make some throws.
And they got into the playoffs a couple times,
Yeah,
and eventually his limitations were shown, and he
yeah,
couldn't get to the Super Bowl.
right.
But
Which wasn't his fault. I mean, he was there doing what he did.
yeah, but if you look back on the Niners, the year they
Yeah.
made the Super Bowl with Harbaugh,
Right.
they pulled the plug
hmm
mid-season. The Niners were a good team, and
Yeah.
they said Kaepernick's more dynamic. He makes the offense more, I'd say, game-breaking.
Right.
And they made it further than Smith probably would have taken them.
Right.
So at some point, you will always get more intrigued by
Right.
the quarterback with the flashy tools, with the great arm, with the mobility, because they can maximize your offensive potential.
hmm
Tua will never be that guy.
hmm
That's what I see.
No, I agree. Rise saying Tua will be a journeyman like Fitzpatrick.
Well, that's a good comparison, though.
Yeah, it is good.
Even if you want to talk about just Fitzpatrick's name, we saw
Yeah.
this 2 years ago.
Right.
Fitzpatrick was the better quarterback than Tua because he made the offense more dynamic. So they were teammates.
Right.
And we saw Tua get benched for Fitzpatrick a couple of times.
Mhm.
We saw the Dolphins. I don't remember if they made the playoffs that year. Did they make the playoffs that year?
Well, I remember that if you recall, in the final game of the season, Fitzpatrick came off the bench and beat the Patriots, which got Kansas City the number 1 seed.
Yeah, but I don't think the Dolphins got in that year.
No, the Dolphins didn't. What I'm saying is,
so they didn't get in. But the point is that they were a threat to because they were significantly better offensively when Fitzpatrick was playing.
Fitzpatrick could throw a deep ball.
That's the point. Tua can't.
Right.
So there's no point in having the flashy objects on the side if Tyreek Hill's running deep 50 yards and the corners know he can't throw the ball 50 yards. There's no point.
By the way, Fitzpatrick on the pregame show for Amazon he's going to be somebody who I think a lot of people are going to enjoy. He did a really nice job.
People want authenticity. And Fitzpatrick's always been a guy, by the way, did I mention he went to Harvard? Who is, going to be a personality. And that's why people like McAfee, for example, because he's genuine, he's honest, and Fitzpatrick's going to fit right in. But that's a good comparison because Fitzpatrick was able to maximize things in the offense that Tua couldn't. And I do think eventually Miami's going to get frustrated with an offensive-minded head coach and go elsewhere in about 2-3 years.
My nephew called the games on Harvard University radio. He and Fitzpatrick were college friends at Harvard.
I feel like every time I mention Fitzpatrick, I got to make a joke about him going to Harvard. And every time I mention Matt Stafford, I got to mention that he went to the same high school as Clayton Kershaw.
There you go.
Those are the official talking points that have been beaten to death for the last about 8 to 10 years.
No.
Always comes up.
And Fitzpatrick was a California kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard Kershaw was a California kid too.
Yeah, he is. He's Southern California.
Yeah, they went to the same high school. That's all people talked about for like 8 years.
There you go.
But,
you got to talk about something, right?
Yes, you do. But you have anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
There was one game, another game that intrigued me. The Bears and the Packers. Is it conceivable that the Packers are 0-2 at the end of the weekend?
I'm not picking them to lose. I think the Packers win comfortably. The Bears won a monsoon game.
Mm-hmm.
Congrats. Justin Fields at 8 completions.
Right.
I still don't think he's very good.
Yep.
The Packers lost to a good Minnesota team on the road.
Mm-hmm.
I picked Minnesota because you can argue that week 1, or honestly any home game against the Packers, is basically the Vikings Super Bowl of the season.
Yep.
Because that's the game you kind of need to win if you want a shot to even win the division. I'm not going to overreact to Green Bay. They lost to an underrated Minnesota team that I actually liked going into the year.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago's not good. And I think they benefited a lot from Mother Nature. They will not be this lucky. Rodgers owns this team. It might be close. It'll probably be an ugly game. Yeah. But Green Bay's defense is also very good.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Bears are not going to be able to move the ball that easily. Mm-hmm. And I think that the Packers probably win that game somewhere around 24-10 if I was picking a score.
There you go. Okay, sounds like a good one. Scotty, thank you so much. It's been fun with you for the week. I've enjoyed it all. If you all have a chance, I'm going to be doing noon on the Bucks pregame show. So we'll be having a lot of fun on the Bucks pregame show. They play the Saints in New Orleans, and ought to have some fun on that. So if you get a chance, check it out on the Bucks Report YouTube channel, and we will be all over the area doing WWBA radio and in Tampa, St. Pete, and WICX radio in Orlando. So we'll be doing an hour pregame show before, as we always do before all the Buccaneers pregame show. So if you get a chance, check it out. Meanwhile, Scotty, I know you're going to be doing some fun stuff coming up here in very, very soon.
Yep, I'll be doing the college football show in about 20 minutes, which should be fun. Besides that, though, there was something I wanted to mention on yesterday's show, which I actually forgot to. It was a bit of a sad day in sports yesterday, not because anyone died or anything, but because you had the retirement of one of the greatest players in the history of tennis, as Roger Federer officially retired.
Yep.
Now, you can argue he's basically been retired for 2-3 years at this point because he's been rehabbing knee issues, etc.
Mm-hmm.
It's always upsetting when you witnessed basically the entirety of a superstar's career in any given sport.
Right.
And Federer has always been that guy who maybe might be the name that's most synonymous with tennis. Even though Djokovic and Nadal have more Grand Slams.
Right.
I think if you asked most people who their favorite player is, I think most people would say Federer. Is that fair?
I think it's very fair. And I think that one of the things that made me enjoy watching Federer was, A, he was a class act. B, I don't think anybody played better serve and volley tennis than he did.
When he wanted to. They changed it around the Wimbledon grass. Yeah. He would have been a lot more of a serve and volleyer, but I think Federer, in terms of overall skill set, is the most talented player to ever play the game.
Yeah. He had Sampras's serve, and he had John McEnroe's soft hands for the drop shots and the other stuff.
Not to mention all the overall consistency with the strokes, but
he was a complete player.
Yeah, Federer was a guy that I actually used to root against when he was in his heyday. Not because I hated the way he played, not because of anything like that. It was because he was too good. It was because he won everything all the time, and I got tired of it. But it's nothing against him. It was because he was so dominant, and he's probably the sole reason why Roddick doesn't have about 4 or 5 Grand Slam titles.
Right.
Federer was always that guy who, if you could pretty much model any tennis player, he'd be what you picked. because he had no flaws in any portion of his game. His serve was great. The volleying was great. The strokes were great. The consistency was great. The movement was great.
Mhm.
And you mentioned the overall class and the
Mhm.
overall grace.
Mhm.
Two ways that I would describe Federer are the two words. He was
Mhm.
the classiest player, and he was the most
Mhm.
graceful player. And if
Right.
you want to talk about him being an all-time great player, which he is, he's
Mhm.
even a better ambassador for the sport.
Oh,
He's never been
100%.
involved in controversy. He's never been involved in anything. He's been basically the most perfect athlete for a sport that you
Mhm.
could have asked for, because
Right.
under no circumstance did he ever not leave it all on the court.
Right.
And the craziest stat of all, it doesn't include walkovers.
Mhm.
Federer played for 24 years, I believe, is the exact
Yeah.
number. He's
Right.
played roughly 1,500, 1,600 matches.
Right.
Do you know how many times Federer has quit in the middle of a match?
I don't think he did.
0.
Yeah.
He never quit in the middle of a tennis match, which I
Mhm.
find insane, but that
Mhm.
tells you how much he loved the sport and
Right.
how much he valued entertaining the overall fans of tennis.
Right.
It's a sad day that he retired. I know he's going to
Uh-huh.
be in the Laver Cup in a week, but you know what I mean.
Right.
I wanted to say that because even though I was always a Djokovic guy, I
Mhm.
became a Djokovic guy because everyone rooted for Federer and Nadal, and I kind of wanted to pivot a little bit.
Mhm.
But Federer was so good for so long that I wanted to say something about it, because even though I didn't root for him when he
Mhm.
was at his heyday, I always respected him. And I
Right.
think that as an overall tennis player, he's the most overall just talented player that the game
Right.
has ever seen.
Well said and true. And if you get a chance, check YouTube out. There is a video of a 7-year-old kid who was at a press conference.
Yeah, the French ball
Uh,
boy kid, right?
right. Who asked, f- when Federer was, he asked Federer a question, and the question was, would you still, would you play another 10 years so I get a chance to play against you? And it turns out that the kid was practicing and at the tennis center, I think it was.
Fast
And
forwarding like 8 or 9 years.
yeah,
Fast
fast
forwarding.
forwarding 10 years. And here came Federer over and played, a set with him, just to give the kid, he promised that if he played 10 years that he would play the kid, and the kid was on the court and he went out there and played him.
Yeah.
Which just again goes to the kind of legend that Federer was.
As a human being, let
Yeah,
alone as a
yeah,
competitor and,
and
and as an
as a dad,
ambassador as well.
as
But
a dad and a husband. I mean, he's also been, you every time the matches are over, you see him with his kids and his family.
yeah, and it,
Um,
it seems to me that Federer, even though, in my opinion, he's not the
mhm,
greatest player of all time, because I
mhm,
do think as of right now, Nadal and Djokovic are ahead of him in any order,
mhm,
it
right,
doesn't really matter. I think you can make a serious case that based on the era that he showed up in,
mhm,
Federer is the most influential
right.
tennis player of all time.
Yeah, I mean, because when he came in, men's tennis especially was a train wreck,
I mean,
and
you had Roddick, so America would have done
yeah,
well, but you had
yeah,
Hewitt, you had a little bit of Tim Henman in there. It was kind of a
right,
down year or
hmm,
down time period for tennis.
right,
And then Federer showed up, and you realized like this guy beat Sampras in Wimbledon. Like
right,
this guy is actually going to be a serious problem.
hmm,
I don't think anyone realized just how dominant he would be.
right,
And my last point, you could argue longevity, which is why I have Djokovic and Nadal ahead of
hmm,
him. When
right,
it comes down to pure peak, if
hmm,
you take like a 5-year sample size,
right,
Federer has the greatest peak in the history of the sport.
hmm.
That's how I look at it.
Well, and at the end of the day, Nadal and Djokovic are fantastic athletes, but they're not the complete package that you just talked about Federer being.
Yeah, and injuries got in his way.
Yeah. So there
But
you go. And to think that he and Venus are, bowing out at the same time.
well,
Venus,
Venus hasn't officially retired yet. Serena has. I
yeah.
don't know how
Oh,
Venus has
Serena,
not
I'm
officially
sorry.
retired
I
yet.
apologize. I got them mixed up. Yeah, Serena had 21 titles and Roger had 20.
Yeah, I
And
think the one thing, I don't want to roast Serena here, but
okay.
I was also a fan of the way that Federer retired. He
Hmm.
didn't do a ceremony. He didn't
Right.
do a farewell, give me a bunch of
Tour. Right.
slideshow.
Right. Yeah.
It's different because Serena's American and it was the
Right.
U.S. Open. I get that.
Right. Hmm.
But I was a big fan that Federer made a statement,
Right.
didn't really there's a lot of humility involved,
Right.
and I appreciate it because that
And
sums
said,
up who he was his
yeah.
entire career.
And he said that he hoped at one point in time maybe he'd come back and play at Wimbledon.
Yeah, maybe join the
Yeah.
senior tour,
Yeah,
play a couple
whatever.
rounds. Worst
Yeah.
case, maybe be a tennis coach. But
Yeah.
I liked the humility because
Mhm.
Federer was never a guy who made it about himself.
No.
He always prioritized the actual sport
Mhm.
above him.
Mhm.
And for that, I commend him for it.
One other thing, because I know it's getting late, but one other thing, and that is he also never dodged a press conference, win or
He
lose.
was always there, win or lose, with a smile on his
Right.
face.
And, there's a lot to be said for that.
Yes, there is.
And I don't think he ever broke a tennis racket. So there you go.
He might have on occasion, but it was very, very rare.
Very rare.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, look, Scotty, have a great weekend. It's been a lot of fun being with you. And I'm going to jump over and watch you guys over on the college show.
Yep. Sounds good.
Take care.
Yep. Same to all of you. And until next time, I know Chris will be back on Monday. So thanks to Jim for helping me hold down the fort. But until next
Anytime.
time on Monday, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.